Alrighty, so today I want to talk about how I only dated narcissistic women until I changed a few things. And, you know, I'm in my 40s now. I only had maybe 5 or 6 kind of long-term, serious relationships. But anyway, it was a terrible pattern that I was stuck in, just dating, finding these kind of narcissistic, evil women that it was never ended well, and I was always miserable. But anyway, so, why that happens is, obviously the first woman you relate to in your life is your mother. And if you have a normal relationship with your mother, most likely you will have normal relationships with women throughout your life. But, like in my case, I had a demented narcissistic mother, and the whole male-female relationship there was screwed up. And the biggest thing that when I was a kid and even as an adult that she would kind of hammer into me was that I'm not good enough the way I am. And I need to change something about myself. She always used to say, well, no one will like you unless, you do something like, oh, you need to grow a ponytail or get an earring or whatever. And so she would say that throughout my life. And so then that got kind of hardwired in to my brain and my behavior. And then as I'm relating to women throughout my life, I'm thinking I need to change something about myself to get them to like me. So that's not a good place to start when you're trying to be in a relationship with someone. You should accept them for who they are, and they should accept you for who you are. You don't need to change yourself. But the other thing was the way I learned to receive and give love to women. And, I learned, the first thing I learned was from my mother. And she would do this thing to me that was like really hot and cold. She'd like pour on the love, and then she'd take it right away. And then it was like she didn't want anything to do with me. And then she'd pour it on, and then she'd take it away. And it was this real hot and cold form of receiving affection. And so that's how I learned to relate to women and to love and like have affection from women. Was it would have to be, they'd either be really into me. The common thread with the women was that kind of behavior, because that's a trait of narcissism, is doing that to people, where you love bomb them and then you pull it back. You don't want anything to do with them, and you love bomb them and you pull it back. And that kind of behavior, it makes the person that it's being done to addicted to that person. And because when it's good, it's really good. But when it's bad, it's really bad. And you are constantly chasing that feeling of when it's good. And, when you're a guy and you're trying to navigate life, and the woman that you're looking to understand women in general, if they're a narcissist or have some kind of personality disorder, your whole way of understanding women is completely screwed up. And I think this is a problem for many men. And I know a lot of guys that cannot relate to women. They don't understand. And the way they do relate to them is an unhealthy way. So, I really didn't start dating and becoming, active with women until I was out of high school. In high school, I pretty much just smoked weed constantly, just to kind of calm, all my issues and whatnot and insecurities, and that was fine. I'm glad I made it through high school without getting, into anything. But once I became a young adult and I started to interact with women, I wanted to have girlfriends. So then I would be attracted to these women, and like my only filter was if I was physically attracted to them. And that would be my initial engagement. I was physically attracted to them. I thought they looked pretty. So then we would begin engaging. And then if that kind of hot and cold behavior, that would draw me in more. And then what I would try to do is I would mimic what their interests were. So I remember I had this girlfriend. I was in my 20s, and at the time I was like I was real into like music and art, and so I was kind of femmy, and I was living in this like small town that was a lot of theater folks and artists and musicians, and it wasn't a big worker man scene. I was like a fembot. And anyway, so I meet this girl, and she moves from Montana, and she's like part Cherokee, and she's she's really pretty, but she's like totally crazy. And I kind of get hooked on wanting to date her or whatever. And so we start hanging out and we start dating, and man, I like totally changed my whole personality and situation to suit what I felt she would want, so I started wearing Carhartts and worker man outfits, and because her first job was digging ditches for some excavation outfit. She was she was lost in her own sense of self, which a lot of women are, man. I see a lot of women trying to, the way they relate to men is like, she probably had a screwed up relationship with her father. And I remember her telling me about her family, and she didn't have a good relationship with them. So it made sense that she kind of had some narcissistic traits, and she couldn't relate to men in a healthy way. So anyway, I think I dated her for like maybe a year. And it goes to show like the kind of women I'd spend time with was, she did that love bombing thing. She got me hooked. Anyway, we decided to move in together, and the plan was, it's been about a year we're dating. The plan was she's going to go back to Montana to do something, button something up, and then we're going to get our own place. I was going to find a house for us, and she was going back to Montana for the summer. And so she goes back to Montana. I line up this house, and she comes back, and the whole time, we're talking, because we're into each other. She comes back, and it's like the day she comes back and she shows up at the house, and it's like something is off, man. It's so weird. And unbeknownst to me, I thought everything was cool. So then, I finally get it out of her, what the hell's going on? And so basically, when she went back to Montana, she like instantly shacked up with another guy. And then now this guy is moving out, and she's telling me, oh, this guy is actually going to move into the place that you got for us, and that's the plan now. And I'm thinking like, what the fuck is she talking about? And and then she's telling me like, oh yeah, you really like this guy. Like, he's actually really cool. You guys should get along. And that's cool, man. Like, whatever. Maybe I'd like that guy, but not in this circumstance. Like, that is crazy, man. So, she stayed at the house for like another couple weeks, and I tried to convince her like, oh yeah, let's get, ditch this guy and get with me. But it was weird. And obviously I'm like this fembot kind of pushover yes man, which that's how I was up until I hit my 30s and I had some life-changing events. But so anyway, that's an example of the relationships that I would have, and they'd be so askewed and weird, and I always thought like it was this, you had to play these games to get with these women. And that was just one of maybe 4 kind of longer term relationships that I would have, and they're all kind of the same thread. It was a narcissistic person. I'm always having to change and be something new for them to like me, and I'm just this yes man pushover. And it reached a head when I was with this girl, and we're together like 4 or 5 years, and it was the same situation, but I was coping with that, and I was so depressed and just miserable that I would drink. I was drinking so much every day, all day, and we're living on this ranch that her folks bought for us and just stuck us out there. And my job was to like rehab the ranch and fix it, which was great and all, but I didn't have a lot of responsibility. And like, you know, they were paying, you know, we didn't have a mortgage or we didn't have to pay rent. It was like this work trade. And so I just had to work a little bit. So I was working for ranchers around the area and hanging out with other ranchers, and it was cool, but man, I was so depressed and drinking so much. And I was drinking and driving a lot. I was living out in the country, and we'd party at night and driving home, and it was really a bad scene. And so we split up, and I started having these dreams about my behavior, and I was seeing myself acting so bizarre and drinking and just, you know, and that's when I like started really to think about caring about myself, loving myself, and respecting myself, and then focusing on what I needed to do to get out of this was like a 20-year cycle of the man that I was, this kind of pushover, yes man, fembot. So I wanted to just leave that person in the past, and that's exactly what I did. And the first thing was quitting drinking and quitting smoking weed, and then just really start addressing all my what was troubling me, and what was, you know, what I was running from, because I was just trying to escape all these feelings. And I just started at the top of the list. First I sobered up, I quit all the drugs, I got out of that situation, I broke up with that girl, and then I started to go to people that I had unresolved emotional problems with. And so that was a previous girlfriend who was intensely narcissistic and was a rough scene, and definitely I still wasn't over that. And so so when I was sober and clear and I could feel my emotions, and then I was began processing and standing up to all these feelings that I had, and, you know, obviously getting sober, exercising, being creative, pursuing all these things that I like to do, and eating healthy and getting good sleep, and just starting to care about myself. Those were the main steps. And then I just started addressing all these emotional angst that I had, and I just went down the list. And it was mostly with women. Like with dudes, yeah, narcissist dudes would come into my life, but like, you know, just cut them loose, and, you know, I don't want to have to deal with those people. I just let them go. But women, especially if you're in a relationship with them, they leave an impact. And if you're not resolved, if those feelings don't get resolved, they'll just eat away at you. So that's what I did. And then eventually it led me all the way back to my narcissistic mother and all the abuse and trauma I suffered as a child. And so now it's been 10 years of working through all this, completely sober, you know, definitely respecting myself and taking care of myself and loving myself. That now I'm everything's still coming up, because I had 40 years of dealing with her weird psychological bombardment and this abuse that she just carried out day in and day out. Any access she has to me, and even if she has access to me now, which I don't talk to her, I can only see her, but she still tries to get in there. But, you know, when I made that decision to sober up and start really respecting myself, that's when I attracted my wife. And that's when we met, and there was no games. It was like we just met and we were interested in one another, and it just evolved naturally. There was no, I don't have to dye my hair blue or get a nose ring or, you know, wear skinny jeans or something. She accepted me for who I was. I accepted her for who she was. And naturally the relationship evolved. And she didn't even live where I live at the time. We met randomly in a bar, watching a country show. And I don't drink, but I still want to be social and go out. So I would do that a lot. And I would really enjoy not drinking and going to bars, because once like you get past 12 o'clock or 1 in the morning, man, everyone is shithoused and you are like stone cold sober, and it's hilarious. So anyway, I encourage you to try that. Anyway, so, you know, through that, really getting that self-respect back, you'll attract the good people, and then you attract the right people, and they're on your side and they help you. And it's amazing when you have someone on your team and you're not fighting against somebody who is just trying to derail your whole life. So, you know, I was fortunate enough to meet my wife, and then, you know, we dated, then we got married, and now we have a family, and we're incredibly supportive, and she is very compassionate and understanding of my situation, which I need because I'm still working through everything. But anyway, it's working out great. So, you know, those are the things that I would recommend looking at changing if you want to break that cycle of only being with terrible women. And once you do that, you'll see, you'll attract good people in your life, and you will reap the fruit of the seeds that you sow. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.